All right, good morning. Welcome to our next session here in the West Theater. So on behalf of the United States Naval Institute, our co-host here in AFCEA International, welcome to our next panel in the West Theater. Please, if you haven't done so already, please mute your cell phones and tuck all that stuff away so it doesn't go off during the session. It's very disruptive. I am Paul Fredenberg. I'm the Executive Vice President for National Security and Defense at AFCEA International, and it's my privilege today to start our next panel, U.S. Coast Guard, Zero Trust, AI, and Cloud. And I'm going to introduce the moderator here today who's going to take us through the rest of the session, but Commander Jonathan White, U.S. Coast Guard. He is the Cloud and Data Branch Chief within the Coast Guard's C5 ISC Infrastructure Services Division. He is leading, along with all of his mates there, in the Coast Guard's rapid transition into a multi-cloud environment to enable application modernization and zero trust architecture. Throughout his career, he has had an extensive experience in providing technical support to the Coast Guard enterprise, delivering, securing, operating, and maintaining Coast Guard systems and networks. He earned his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the United States Coast Guard Academy and has multiple graduate level engineering degrees, so well-educated young man here. And he holds acquisition and contracting office certification. So well-qualified panel. I'll leave it up to you to moderate and introduce the rest of the panel, and we'll get on with the festivities. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Coast Guard panel on cloud data, AI, and zero trust. To my left, I have Captain Patrick Thompson. He is the Infrastructure Services Division Chief for the Coast Guard. He's leading all aspects of our infrastructure sustainment and modernization efforts. I work for him. His roles include modernizing our Layer 1 networks, our security architecture, including ICAM firewalls and DNS services. He also is responsible for our data center, on-prem data center, and now we have added this role of our commercial cloud and big data environments as well. To my right is Mr. Paul Soucy. He is the core for our infrastructure managed services contract. That contract is a result of combining over 10 independent contracts into one vehicle, which allows us to deliver IT core infrastructure services to the entire Coast Guard and do it in a coordinated manner and in a more efficient manner for us as well. We're about over a year into that contract, and we're accelerating our pace, which is why we're here today to give you a status update. We actually gave a presentation last year at AFCEA West, and I'll say last year when we gave that presentation, we really didn't have anything to our name. It was more of a vision. I'm standing here today saying we have 2 ATO cloud environments in Azure and AWS. We have a data fabric with a 3-year ATO built around the DISA big data platform, and we have a software factory with a provisional ATO already onboarded 7 applications ready to deploy to production. So we did all of that in 1 year. So if you don't know about the Coast Guard is a unique service. We have 11 statutory missions. We need purpose-built applications for all of those lines of business. Every single mission requires multiple applications to be successful. What we have done in the past is built those applications in isolation from each other. What we're going to do in the future is build simplified experiences for our end users on top of common infrastructure platforms. And that's the root of our conversation today. We are participated in both DHS and DoD networks. Our network is riding on DoD, but we integrate very much with the DHS systems. We share data with DHS as well. We're focused on cloud and foundational infrastructure capabilities. We're ready to leverage those investments to rapidly modernize our application and data portfolios. We want to bake in zero trust from the outset during that modernization process. And we want to simplify the daily experience for our coasties. We've already fundamentally transformed how our coasties interact with IT services with our transition to Microsoft 365 services. We recently just took the covers off and deployed to the entire enterprise our Azure Virtual Desktop solution called Manta Virtual Desktop. We have over 6,000 people using it per week, which is pretty substantial for the Coast Guard. We only have a population of about 50 to 60,000 folks. So almost 10% of the Coast Guard is using this solution in the week after we deployed it to the entire Coast Guard. And that's the power of the cloud. We really need your help to leverage the rest of that power and make us successful. Now I'm going to pass it over to Captain Thompson to introduce our concepts and how we want to move forward in this environment.
All right, thank you. And thanks so much for FCA and the U.S. Naval Institute for putting on this conference. It was, I'll give a little bit of history of myself and FCA, just to tell you how much I respect the organization, how essential I think it is to a lot of what we do. Is that when a couple of years after I had joined the Coast Guard and gone to the Coast Guard Academy, I was given an opportunity to go down to Alexandria, Virginia, to one of our, at the time it was called TISCOM. It was our Telecommunications and Information Systems Command. I was there as a cadet, a junior at the academy, and one of the lieutenants that was there for lunch one day said, "Hey, I'd like to take you out and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what I think helps people to be successful in government and as officers in the military, and especially in the C4IT community." And one of the things he told me at lunch is that I really should get involved in this organization called FCA, which I quickly did a couple of years later after I graduated from the academy, and I was in an IT billet. And I think it's been essential for me and to collect and connect with industry, to understand where industry is going, what kind of motivations that we both have, where we think innovation is headed, and really helped me connect with that and really bring that into the Coast Guard as we've moved forward for years. So I've been on the board for the FCA Lexington chapter, and I've been part of these events for many years. I think we've spoken here, John and I, for at least the last 2-3 years. So it's really appreciate everything that FCA does for that. So I'll kind of take it back and maybe a little bit about the history of the C4IT community in the Coast Guard over the last few years, and some of the struggles that we recognized is that we used to build a lot of IT systems in silos, and because there was a lack of interconnections between those systems, they were kind of allowed to do that, and it worked out, and it wasn't horrific. But in a modern world, interconnections between the cloud and access and mobility has drawn all these systems together as one, and it's become essential that every system is connected across many different technologies in order to be successful. And we were not organized for that. We were under several different commands. Our IT services were delivered over multiple different areas under different organizational structures. So we actually reorganized and became one C5I service center. And that was kind of step one of creating an organizational construct that would help drive us to the future and to help enable what we talk about with these cloud-enabled capabilities and interconnected networks, is that if we were organized under one umbrella, we would act as one organization, drive forward to that future. And so we've made that organizational change a few years ago, and then we after that we've been trying to go on this path where we've been integrating a lot of our contracts under one umbrella. We've had several, we used to have, several contracts for networking, several contracts for app development, several contracts for our data. And, when you have different vendors, all operating independently, it becomes very hard to manage. It's, you're not incentivizing interconnectability and integration. And that's really what we've been working towards for the last year. So one of the major ones that we've done starting about a year ago was our IMS contract, which was won by Peraton, which has been our vendor for the last years. We've kind of made that transition, and they've really taken about 16 different contracts and kind of roped them underneath one umbrella, and has helped us to kind of develop a roadmap for innovation and modernization of our infrastructure across the Coast Guard, and that's where Paul Soucy and Commander White have both been instrumental in kind of shepherding that and kind of developing that as we move forward. That's a work in progress, and but I'm very excited about the future of trying to make sure our infrastructure gets modernized to respond to the global security threats that face the nation as we move forward. The next stage, that's going to come with that is our app development piece, and that's really the next stage that we're trying to set our environment up for. Our infrastructure needs to be ready with zero trust and to meet all the DoD mandates, and then our apps have to be built on that platform. So the next contract vehicle that we're letting out a multiple vendor award is called Agile Compass. It's I would say of all the challenges I think that the Coast Guard is going to face in the next year, that is probably the biggest one, is really taking all of our disparate apps that have been developed over 15 or 20 or plus years and really modernizing them into a cloud-ready environment that's able to kind of meet the mission need and also to quickly evolve so we don't get into this stale state that we've been in the past. I was sat at one of these Google conferences, 5-6 years ago, and it was really interesting to listen to them talk about their DevSecOps, where they're releasing a new software load. At the time, it was like every 8 minutes. I think now they're down to seconds, where they're pushing out a new version, slightly changed of the software on a regular reoccurring basis. We're in the weeks to months. I'm hoping that we can bring that back and to really help to modernize that. And I think getting to the cloud and getting to these new acquisition contract vehicles is really going to be the part that's going to help solve those issues. And that's where we're really looking for industry to tag into and help us out. But as many of you have probably heard, our commandant's quote where tomorrow looks different, and so will we. I think that you're really seeing the IT community in the Coast Guard quickly evolve, and that's to me the most exciting thing. I think there's nothing more essential for a modern Coast Guard than to have a modern IT environment that can really help our sailors deliver these capabilities quickly and efficiently, and to really to do so in a mobile way. Most of our Coast Guard guys, they're not working at a desk. They're going out and doing inspections of bridges. They're out on ships. They're out on aircraft. They need to be able to do their work quickly and efficiently and have access to the data that they need right when they need it. And all of these modern SATCOM solutions like PLEO, as many of you have heard, we've been pushing out Starshield, a military derivative of Starlink. That has been an absolute game changer. Not only for our cutters in the field to be able to access, near shoreside speed, all of the data that we have on-prem today. They're able to not only get our mission done, but it's also been a huge retention piece for us. Being able to bring up a quick Teams meeting with your kids and a little video conference and say goodnight to them is really a game changer, and it really creates a better environment for our people in the field that are deployed for months on end doing Coast Guard missions, and it's really great to see that happen. We can move over to you, John. Pass it back and talk a little bit more about the actual environment that we're setting up. I think that's this piece is to me really the main focus of this up and coming year. We've been trying to lay the groundwork for cloud for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think we're pretty much there. We've got our BCAP connections to both Azure, AWS. We have all sorts of other different initiatives that we've been trying to build out all the security services and try to really get that basic overlay going. And I feel like we're right on the cusp where we're going to start to do some initial pilot apps and move them to the cloud. And Jonathan's really going to talk about where we're going to go in the next year. And like I can say, this is going to be our main focus, and it's really the part of this brief that I'm the most excited about.
Yeah, so if people know me, I love building PowerPoint slides, so I made this one specifically. This is new for this conference. Pulling together some threads, some ideas that have been swarming around our conversations. I meet with vendors constantly. I like to pick your brains and understand what you're doing in the environment, what you're doing for DoD, what you're doing for DHS. I want to take the best of breed and pull it into our environment and make it available to our coasties for use. So when I think about the cloud, I actually think the cloud, in my mind, it blends into the background of this conversation, which is why it's central to this. What really matters is what's happening on the edge of that cloud, and then further what's happening on that edge, right? That's your application layer. That's what the user is interacting with. It should be a completely seamless experience to the end user as to how they're interacting with that application, whether they're at home, whether they're in the car, hopefully they're not driving, whether they're on an aircraft. It doesn't matter. They should be able to access that app and do their job, as the captain mentioned. So how do we want to push this out? Well, at the very top, we have our data layer. We have Surveyor, which is our data fabric service. We are building that out to meet a workforce readiness issue that we have in the Coast Guard. You may have heard about that. We are focusing on workforce HR data first. And we have already pulled out data from our HR system. We've injected into our data fabric. We're using the tools that we've initially deployed to prove out their capabilities. We have a data team 1, that has been stood up in the Office of Data and Analytics. They are focused on that problem set. That is problem set number 1 of probably 100, okay? So where are you going to get involved in this? Well, it's in data team 2, data team 3, data team 4. Maybe there's an Intel data team. We might stop numbering them. We actually need to call them some good names. But nonetheless, what we're going to have across the Coast Guard are replicas of data team 1. They're going to have data scientists, data engineers, artificial intelligence experts, automation experts, because we want to automate everything that we do. We don't want coasties doing repetitive tasks. Who hates repetitive tasks? Everybody does, right? Let the computer do that. We want coasties to think. We want coasties to inspect and pay attention. Okay, that is our job. And so we want to leverage this data fabric to do those missions. We want to stop people from downloading information into Excel and creating a PowerPoint or a dashboard presentation for the Admiral every day. And they have to wake up at 5 in the morning, they spend 3 hours collating the information, they realize half of it is incorrect, and they have to call a bunch of people so they can deliver it to the desk at 8 a.m. How about you just pull the dashboard up from live data feeds every single day? That's the future of our data fabric, and that's what we want to deliver. So making connections to source data sets, enabling applications to be built on top of that, that's where we're going in this next year, in addition to that data science, data team aspect. Moving to the right, artificial intelligence. Who here has heard of artificial intelligence? I don't play games, right? I don't like marketing. I like solutions that deliver results in the AI world. I want AI to be embedded in every application that we develop in some way or form. I don't want AI to hang on to the side. Okay? If we have a business process, if we have a document that needs to be analyzed, I want to use AI to do that in the future. And I want it to push those results back in front of the operator so that they can make a decision in that space. I want to use AI to make sense of all of the data that we have in the logistics domain. We have a ton of data that we can pull from our ships, our aircraft, and our small boats. We can pull that into the cloud environment, analyze that information, and make decisive logistic decisions on our assets. You may have heard the Admiral the other day speaking about our oldest cutter. She's 80 years old. Oh my goodness. She might not have good logistics data. She probably doesn't have a computer on the engine. But we are dealing with an average age fleet of over 30, 40 years. It is not a good situation, and we need to be able to make smart decisions on how we sustain those cutters. When we bring in new cutters in the fleet, the amount of data coming off of those cutters is insane. And we have to be able to make sense of that data, onboard the asset, and bring the insights back to shore as fast as possible. So that's where I'm looking at for AI. I really want to leverage these capabilities in the next year. We also want to automate our business processes. We have a very robust robotic process automation team where we have over 40 bots developed for the Coast Guard. That's 40 bots. There actually are instantiations of that, over 200 or so instantiations of that bots across the entire Coast Guard. They process the financial transactions of the Coast Guard. We actually returned over $100 million of unused funds because of robotic process automation last year. And we're going to do it again this year, and we're going to do it again at scale constantly. We're automating our HR processes. We're making sense of, we're eliminating support contracts that were put in place to take data from one spreadsheet and put it into a system. These are awesome capabilities, and we are expanding on that capability at scale. Those data teams I mentioned should be running RPA in every single aspect of their business. Moving down to the bottom, software factory. This is our DevSecOps platform. The Coast Guard has one. The Coast Guard will only have one, okay? We are building this to meet the needs of our developers so that they can get applications in front of people's eyeballs at speed. It is complying with the DoD requirements for a continuous ATO. We have deployed this factory. We have tested it. It is ready to rock and roll. As the captain mentioned, we have Agile Compass coming on board. We want your best developers coming in the door and building amazing applications for our teams. Amazing applications. This is the vehicle to do it. And my job is to provide your developers an amazing experience. So if I'm not doing it, let me know, okay? I'm really passionate about platform engineering for the Coast Guard. And then on the right-hand side, low-code platforms. We have Microsoft 365. We're bringing on more low-code platforms as we speak. We're enabling our deck plate developers. That's a concept that we're formalizing in the Coast Guard, where we push out a platform that the average coastie could use to trial and model their ideas in the space that they're operating. And if we see something that is really good, we will bring that in as a formal application. So we have a concept called a micro app and a concept called a mission app. Crossing that divide is absolutely critical for us. We want to get the ideas from the field and bring them into an enterprise-supported environment. And I see low-code applications as being that gateway to bring those ideas to bear. We want to focus on case management. That is going to be a huge effort coming out of the Coast Guard. We have to modernize every single one of our case management solutions. That includes our missile application, which is our maritime law enforcement application. That includes HR processes. That includes even medical processes, you name it. Anything that we want to do, we want to automate that and bring it in as a formal case management process. And then lastly, we want to prove out our ideas. We don't want to sit in a room for a year debating on requirements. Show me what this is going to look like. Prove it out on the low-code platform. Show me how you're going to integrate stuff, and then let's make decisions on moving forward with that in a rapid basis. And we're going to do this all on a Zero Trust foundation. The point of this modernization is not just to bring applications to bear, it's to do it securely. And this is our opportunity to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. We have a modern infrastructure, modern app experience, and a secure experience as well. We want to leverage all those capabilities to do it at the same time. And now the captain will talk about some opportunities and challenges specifically related to our Zero Trust endeavors.
Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments before I kind of dig into that. And so, I love that Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. And when I looked at, I think you're hearing a lot that we're really pushing to the cloud, but I think there's always a question. The government's been trying to go to the cloud for some time, right? And it's why are we pushing so hard right now? And I'll tell you that the real answer is because we've started to look. We stood up an office of data analytics in the Coast Guard. It's grown to, I don't even know, 65 plus people, and they're hiring them all the time. And there's really an executive push from the upper echelons of the Coast Guard to really start to leverage the data we have to make better decision advantages. And as much as people think, oh, you're going to do that to do your missions, and although I think that's true, I think we're really looking at how do we use the data we have to make better financial decisions? How do we use the data we have to make better HR decisions? How do we do that for our intelligence services, and then also how do we actually do our missions better? And every study that we've gone to, every time that we've looked, we've sent people up to MIT, and they've got master's degrees in this. And when they come back, their answer is always, you're never going to get to be able to do data analytics and AI until you get your systems into modern cloud environments. That has been the answer every single time, every study that we've heard. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, and I think that's for us especially true. I think we have some apps that are they're so old that there's we have stuff that's still written in Fortran, which is kind of funny. I think there's really that's really the push for why we're doing this, is we're trying to get our applications moved into a modern framework very quickly so we can start to leverage that data to make decisions and to have that decision advantage that many of our executives want. I think they've all been part of the Coast Guard and key decision areas for most of their careers, and they make a lot of those decisions based on their experience, based on their hearts, where they really feel some of their expertise and their lieutenants down below have told them to go. But we've lacked that ability to really use these modern data analytics tools to really help inform those decisions based on the data, and I think that's what they're really driving towards, and that's really being the biggest push to drive us to get to these modern apps in the cloud. So I'll just lay that as kind of a little bit of a background. Some of the biggest problems and challenges we're going to have on the purely on the infrastructure piece is, as many of you have heard, the DoD has pushed forward with these zero trust mandates that are due in 2027. That's a major change to how we do business. It's going to require massive amounts of new technologies to be rolled out. We're looking at how do we deliver our identity management and access solutions in a more modern way. That's a major focus for the next 1 to 2 years. How are we able to really track our assets and ensure that they're getting patched and maintained both on the software level and on the hardware level, at the speed that we need it done. Those are all the big challenges that we're looking at in the next 1 to 2 years. And then there's trying to get into the details of what are the best systems in these areas, what are the best tools, what are the best manufacturers that make different software suites or services that we can offer that will help us to get there. Getting to meet those DoD zero trust requirements in the next 3 years is going to be a big challenge for us, and it's one that I'm probably the most excited by. But it's really going to lay that framework for a modern cloud environment, which is really going to lay that framework for a decision advantage in using AI and machine learning going forward. If we have not set those up and we don't give people access to the data with modern satellite connections, cellular connections where they can access this data no matter where they are in a modern, secure, zero trust way, having these tools is not going to be value to us. As many of you have heard, the amount of data that we're processing in the last year or 2 years each year is equivalent to all the data ever made before 2020. If you look at that and you start to relay it forward, you need to set up the better frameworks for the government to operate in and to really ensure that data is secure. And that's really where we're going, and that's really the future of the infrastructure group here for about the next 2 to 3 years as we move forward.
So one of the focus areas that we've had during this journey is changing the culture, changing the organization structure, and informing our users of what that looks like to them. And Mr. Paul Soucy is going to go through how we accomplished that and how we're going to do that into the future.
So, as Captain Thompson was saying, we had started with kind of a disjointed C5I. People were very results focused, but that led to a lot of siloed teams developing applications that only solved maybe one problem, were not, kind of cross-device capable. And so in kind of preparation for the changes we were going through, they reorganized the entire C5I on the civilian and military side. And that kind of paved the way for the IMS contract to come in and combine all of our existing contracts into a single managed service contract. So now we have a civilian and military organization that matches our contractor organization. And over the last year, we've done this transition, and now's the time that we're really pushing towards this modernization and to really start achieving the goals that we wanted to achieve. And I think we demonstrated to the Coast Guard that we had the highest level of buy-in for a change of this magnitude. Your IT is going to change. These changes are going to be drastic for like a very short period of time, and then everything is going to start getting better, more rapid, and start working for everybody. We've tried to be very transparent with our user base as we've rolled out these changes. I've emphasized as we're talking to all of our stakeholders, because there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning as to what type of benefits we're going to experience as this rolls out, and why we're going through this initial few months of pain to achieve this much greater mission and something that we're truly going to benefit from for like the next 7 years and beyond. when I thought through this and I talked with our OCM managers, I really wanted to make sure that I engaged in risk management that everybody could see. You know, what are those challenges? What does that mean for your applications? A recent example, MVD's rolling out, you know, that starts to change our, you know, how we access our test network. I want everybody who is a player in that to feel like they're being heard and they're a part of, you know, their problem statement being turned into a solution. And that's kind of where Peraton comes in. Peraton is helping us, you know, turn those problem statements into opportunities for the Coast Guard to make a, you know, a better user experience that lasts. And then as soon as we have that, I'm making sure that we're telling those success stories. You know, the help desk, you know, when we went through this big change, you know, inevitably we experienced a little bit of a rise in our, you know, service desk ticket counts. And everyone was eager to point out that, you know, maybe there was something not quite going right. Well, we're on the downtrend now as the modernizations are being realized. I want to make sure that that is heard just as loudly as any of the initial challenges we went through. Next slide. Okay, so that kind of feeds into my next slide. And, you know, when I, again, was starting this contract, I struggled a little bit to determine what does success look like. This is a performance-based contract. We're getting away from just buying engineering teams and engineering support, and now we want to purchase, you know, end-state products from all of our vendors, from Agile Compass, you know, from the IMS contract through Peraton. So I've tried to work, you know, with Commander White and others to determine, you know, what do those successes look like? How can we measure them? You know, we're going through another major change with the Zero Trust rollout. What does that success look like? What's it look like when I'm thinking about the contract and how that's going to work? Do I need to start setting up, you know, measurements for myself as we go through this another incredibly complicated, you know, contracting change for us? How can I do this rapidly? You know, how do I make sure that I'm not the problem? You know, I'm constantly measuring what our technical complexity is. You know, how much can our users handle as far as the pace of change goes? You know, we're changing the way they interact with their desktop. We're starting to develop what's called user personas right now because I want to start moving people to device types that are right for them and their specific needs. So they're going to see a rapid change there. We're moving to this managed service where a contractor owns every single thing they do. That's a change. We're going to be doing Zero Trust. You know, their whole experience and how they interact with every application is going to change. That's a lot of measurables for me. And, you know, I think that this is probably another area of improvement we have is, okay, we've gone through this one big challenge. Well, now we have these next 10 giant challenges. How am I going to make sure that the communications infrastructure I set up works for them? And then along with that, our administrators, you know, both the contractor through Peraton and on the Coast Guard side, you know, their whole world's changing probably faster than they've ever seen it change. What skill sets do they need? What accesses do they need? How do they deal with their data and in what environment? Those are all things that I'm, you know, trying to think through. And then just kind of to wrap this up, you know, managed service is a big leap for the Coast Guard, as I've been saying. And I do want to make sure that we all stay focused on why we're going this direction. And the end state is going to be that our end users stop thinking so much about IT. Right now, the Coast Guard, you know, Commander White said we have 11 statutory missions. Not one of them is IT, right? So the fact that, you know, we have so much current friction when it comes to their applications, that's something that we're striving to solve. I want them to use the products that we give them. I want to give them an infrastructure that builds upon or that gives them a platform to build these applications on that are just going to work. And this is going to allow everyone to just actually focus on their job instead of why their device is going so slow and how long they've had a ticket open for. You know, the other big initiative, I think this was a couple of initiatives ago, but we're still working our way towards there as a mobile workforce. Coast Guard is very dynamic. We respond to pretty much every natural disaster that happens in the United States and around the world. We respond at a moment's notice. Truly, when I was active duty Coast Guard, There was one of those big tsunamis in Asia. We launched the Ready Crew airplane like with an hour notice to do tsunami relief across the world. And the Coast Guard's not very big. When you go with just as many people as you can fit in that plane and just the things that you can carry with you. And so when they go, their tools need to be portable, practical, and flexible. And, this is something that we're going to be able to develop with this applications focus. If they arrive on scene and their network's not stood up, they can use a personal device to access our cloud applications now. If they arrive on scene and they don't have, a desktop computer of sufficient power, we're giving them a platform now where they could run, any sort of engineering applications, again, virtualized. So that's pretty exciting to me, and those are going to be the real successes of this big transformation story that we're going through.
Good, sure. I'll wrap it up for you. So, I asked Paul, I said, I think change management's a big deal, and I think, if you're going to give a chance to speak up here, kind of talk about it from your perspective and, how you see change happening in the Coast Guard. I think change in IT, especially among the people that are here, is, we think about IT a lot. We think about technology a lot, and it's a lot of times it's very easy. One of the things that we're trying to roll out is PC as a service, where we kind of take our technicians out of the loop and we send, if your computer breaks, I just send you a new computer and you just open it up and use it. I don't need to send the computer to your servicing IT shop and then you can coordinate, a date and time to get over there and use it. And I think everyone in this room, if I sent you a computer and a docking station, you very easily, know how to unbox that and set it up yourself without much of a challenge. And I see some people smiling, laughing, and I'll tell you a story. So I was curious about, the Joe average public, if that was true or not. So I bought one of my friends a docking station, and they got a new laptop, and I just didn't say anything, and I just watched, and I got to see, a non-IT person trying to figure out how to set up a docking station, and they took the USB-C that came out of the docking station and they plugged it back into the docking station into a USB jack inside of it, and you could just see them. They took the power or the HDMI from the external monitor and they plugged that into their laptop, and then they plugged the power into their laptop, and then they were confused as to what does the docking station do, and I didn't quite realize that we're not. It's not everyone is at the same level, and so as we roll out a lot of these modern IT systems, we really need to think about how we're going to, bring the users there and do it, in a sequential kind of managed way, how we're going to communicate with them. Some people are, they want to see videos, they want to see, pictures, they want to, be told the story a lot more. And communications, it becomes so essential and so important. And it's, we've written change management and, professionals into all of our new contracts. And I think that's, as much as we've done that, I think we're learning that it's becoming even more essential. It's becoming a much bigger deal that, really understanding at the rate of change that we're going, how do we get there so quickly and so efficiently, especially when we go into this new world of developing modern apps. People are not going to want to have to go through training on how to use the app. Nobody trained me on how to use Amazon's app on how to buy something. It was just overtly obvious when you open it up how it runs, right? And they didn't just get there by chance. They got there through sequential iterations where they A/B tested two apps and they saw which one people were clicking through faster and which one they were clicking through slower, right? And they're like, all right, B worked better. Okay, let's look at B and then have an A and B version of version B, and then keep iterating and moving forward. And that agile, I mean, we called our new software development contract Agile Compass for a reason. That's the expectation. Is we've set up a hardware and infrastructure service platform, through our IMS contract to be agile, and then we're bringing on this new development, DevSecOps contract, which I'm hoping industry is highly engaged with, to try to help us get there and to really help improve that user experience as we move forward. I see the next 3 to 5 years of the Coast Guard of being this huge resurgence of how we improve our IT and how we do things better, and it's we've been moving faster than I think anyone has ever seen before. You know, Starlink, Starshield, we've pushed that out onto 70 Coast Guard ships in the last 6 months, and we have another 70 that are rolling out. You know, right now we're doing 6 a week. So you know, you're taking cutters that had a trickle of network connectivity. You know, they could send and receive an email every 12 hours. You know, that now they're you know, these guys on board, when they're off duty, they're taking online college classes. It's a completely different user experience, nothing like we've ever had before, and it's really transforming the way that we do business. And now it becomes even more essential that we modernize all of the back end and all those service and apps to basically provide that, you know, really leverage that connectivity that we've established in a new and modern way. And that's the piece that we're really excited for during the next year.
Okay, we can take some questions. It's 11:30. We've got about 10, 20 minutes.
I'll start off.
Have at it.
Sure thing. First of all, love you guys. And by the way, on the story in the docking station, it's really not good to tease your family about something like that. So I'm not sure if that was who your use case was. So Lucian Niemeyer, former Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And what I absolutely love about the work with the Coast Guard is because you guys are smaller, you actually laser focus in on what you need to get done for the Coasties. And I do appreciate that very much. And it's very apparent in your briefing today. So as we're looking at the technology you want to deploy, I know, being in a senior role, I had to actually make it very apparent to the warfighter, in this case the Coast Guard, how it was going to enhance your missions. And really that's the tie-in, that's the return on investment. What are you going to do to make their missions more effective, faster, better, with less resources? And so when I'm looking at all the technologies, when folks are coming in and talking to you, I'm hoping they're presenting to you a problem set. Here's where we see a significant problem. And then here's where we think our application can help you. All right. So for an example, I'm leading a team right now. As an ASN, one of my portfolio items was operational energy. I'm thoroughly convinced any type of contingency we have anywhere, operational energy is going to be an Achilles heel for the Coast Guard and for anybody. How to be able to get fuel for missions, for installations, for everything we're doing. Looking at where technology can help us. Right now, we've just initiated a study with DoD to provide real-time data analytics for where every fuel tank is in the world globally, to allow the warfighter to know where they need to go to anywhere in the world. Right now, the Coast Guard's not a part of that. Do you want to be a part of it? And are you reaching out on these studies on using new technologies to solve real-world problems? And if that's the case, I'd like to talk to you afterwards. But these are the types of things I think are going to help us in the developer world. Is what problems do you want to solve? What's your most compelling problem? And then ultimately, where can we bring you a solution set, not just our vendor technology, but what exactly is you want to get done?
So, you know, the Office of Data Analytics that I kind of mentioned briefly earlier, that stood up at kind of at the headquarters level right now. And so that team has all sorts of data scientists and groups underneath them, and they're continually to grow. And you know, we're really trying to set up the infrastructure and the tools and give them the capability to leverage those tools. And we're really looking for them to come in and talk to people like you on what use cases, what problems they want to solve, how do they want to use the tools. So internal for us is that we're really trying to be a service provider to them, is really understand like what kind of analytics tools would they want. You know, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You know, the financial guys want a slightly different thing than, say, an operational person or an HR group. So that Office of Data Analytics is new, exciting. It's under Captain Brian Erickson right now, although he'll be changing out this summer. It's to me that is probably one of the most exciting parts of the Coast Guard. I think it's one of those things that, you know, 10 years from now we're going to wonder how we did without. You know, it's going to be like cell phones, right? Like I wonder how friends like planned going out to dinner before. You know, it's just it seems like almost impossible in a pre you know, cell phone internet world. You know. Tons of work to kind of coordinate pretty much anything, and you know, with the future of analytics and data intelligence, I really see, you know, people are going to come with myriad problems like that, and they're going to come and we're going to be able to kind of take the intelligence that we've garnered from several of them and try to make our best decisions. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting things coming to the Coast Guard. I think there's going to be a little bit of a delay. I think there's going to be a transition period while we modernize and finish modernizing all of our networks. We get all our stuff into the cloud. We get it into these modern frameworks. And all of these new tools and all of the innovation in that space is really going to come to bear, and it's going to help the Coast Guard to do its missions in a way that we haven't even thought of yet. And I think what you described is one of many ways of that happening. Everyone's running for the.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Jason Imsey. I'm the Director of Operations for Federated IT, also a retired Mustang lieutenant. Don't judge me being a Mustang. I'm also a Cutterman and Intel officer. Well, at least I was when I was in the Coast Guard. I'm really excited about a lot of what I'm hearing here, just some of the tools, just all of the applications running through my head right now of how I would have used Missile differently if I had AI and had actual connectivity on a DAO doing a boarding. I have some ideas. What is the best venue to get those ideas in front of you to see if it's something that could be nurtured?
So we have a vendor relations team in C5I Service Center. That's the BODCAS VMS, if you like acronyms. They're the best entry point because they'll be able to redirect you to the right organizational element within C5I Service Center. Mm-hmm. Certainly our acquisitions directorate also has a vendor relations component. Another great way to get in to have a conversation. From the application perspective, don't talk to me. I'll shoo you away. I'll try to connect you, but I can't coordinate everybody, right? We are definitely on the infrastructure side. I love hearing about the problems and the different solutions, but I've reached my maximum quota of listening to that for now. But please reach out on the website. You can find C5I Service Center. There is a vendor relations link on there. That's on USCG.mil. Reach out to them. If you're not getting anything from them, hit me up. I'll bonk them on the head for you, okay?
Awesome. Thanks, Commander.
All right, aloha. So, Mel Yokoyama again. The question really kind of got back to 2011. I feel like I'm back in 2011 again. So part of the data center consolidation for the United States Navy. 152 data centers, 15,000 apps. Today it's in 3 data centers, and hopefully we're still probably at 15,000 apps. But the biggest challenge, and there's 3, but the biggest one was just the why. It's the communication to inside of the Navy, inside of the Coast Guard, because that's technology, they'll figure it out. It's the why and the strategic comms, so you have advocates in appropriate places. Case in point, just to get an ATO, we put spies in different places to accelerate and hand carry things to get things moving. And that person that I worked with side by side was Ken Bible. So, he's your CIO now. Yep. He has all the scars. So if there's any way we can help us with the strategic communication, more than happy.
Yeah, so there's multiple layers to the Coast Guard organization, right? We're technical, we're implementers, we're doers, we make things happen. But there's a whole stack atop of us, right? We have our business program managers in the CG6 world, specifically CG6.8. They need help writing requirements, functional requirements, digesting operational needs and turning them into functional requirements that we can implement. There's connective tissue there. Certainly on the CG7 side, you have your capabilities office. They're writing your operational requirements. We're trying to get out of a systems mindset and go more towards a capabilities mindset. All of these pieces are operating somewhat independently right now, right? But when you look at the platform experience, you need to operate in synchrony in order to leverage your platforms and not rebuild an environment that you already have. So that's one of my major risks, all right? I really enjoy working with our ATO friends. I think they ask good questions, and they offer the service that we need, but they also need help writing documentation. There's another contract coming out with the RMF support services, or ISSO support services. We desperately need really smart ISSOs, contracted ISSOs, to help us push these packages through, leverage provisional ATOs and inheritance, and know what that means, to be able to talk that through the organization. So spot on. I love putting little spies in the organization. That's a bureaucracy hack, and I leverage that constantly. Right? I have friendships across the entire network of the Coast Guard that I pull on when I need assistance.
From a best metric standpoint, FTE reduction, especially ISSOs, because that's why you're putting things up in the cloud. But I'll monitor that as a as one of the top metrics. Thanks.
So first, thank you for doing this. This is extremely hard work. My name is Paul Puckett. When it comes to navigating this world, I think your most important slide was the one that said organizational buy-in. And at the bottom it said the ability to tell stories. Now, Commander White, I know you say you're at saturation point of applications and workloads. Copy. What kind of success stories do you want first in the hopper that drives opportunity for other organizational buy-in who might be in that kind of lagging, like, I don't really want to go. Mm-hmm. What kind of stories are you looking for when it comes to industry engaging across the United States Coast Guard, trying to say, hey, come to this capability so that some story can be told? Where should they be looking? What are those hot spots? How can we help?
So I'll tell an older story. You know, you had mentioned that, you know, the several data centers, and we went to like these main hub data centers, and you know, we had some holdouts that didn't want to make the move, right? So we at one point we had a discussion with them. We said, hey, you know, what do you think of this idea? You can keep your data center, but we're going to be, the main data center is going to be your DR site, right? And they were kind of like begrudgingly, okay, that seems like a good compromise, right? You know, you win, I win, everyone wins, right? And then, you know, fast forward, you know, a couple weeks, months later, and there was a major outage, and the little, you know, ad hoc primary data center went down, and they had to go to the DR site, which was our main hub data center that was professionally managed and had big network paths and you know, huge pieces of hardware. And immediately everyone started to say, oh my gosh, everything's working so much better now. You know, when we click on the website, it's super responsive. You know, they're you know, the great user experience. You know, I think that's what we're going to experience in the cloud. I think, you know, the people they're okay with the on-prem experience, but every time we've gone and we've moved shift a workload into the cloud, just like Office 365 for email or Teams, you know, there was a whole bunch of naysayers that, you know, said, oh my gosh, you know, what about resiliency and reliability? I can't believe you're going to the cloud and your email is not going to work. And all of a sudden they realize, you know, not only does it work better, is it faster, is it more responsive, never fails. You know, it also provides, you know, additional opportunities for mobility users, and I think, you know, we just need to have a couple of those initial apps move over and have people talk about those improvements and how they're, you know, the user experience of, you know, if Amazon was doing this for me to buy you know, a toothbrush, I would just go to another website, right? In the government, a lot of times you don't have those other opportunities. So you don't have the, you know, the competitive nature of that, but you know, the frustration in your workforce over time will result in people choosing other jobs, right? And they'll leave, and then you'll be struggling more. You know, significant reduction in productivity. You end up hiring more people to get that same level of production when, you know, you could just have a more effective and efficient system. You know, when you look at the, you know, the response to like a Super Bowl, and like, you know, everyone wants to stream the Super Bowl, it was very easy for those vendors to kind of spin up new services and get online. If there was a hiccup, you know, a few minutes later, they resolved it, right? That you can do those things when you're in a massive commercial cloud that we can't do on a government on-prem solution. And I think, you know, as much as I think the Coast Guard, probably even more so than many of the other DoD entities, their response organization, something happens and we jump, right? And they're, you know, we have a lot of micro responses all the time, but there are going to be times where we have like a Deepwater Horizon where it's a massive, you know, event, and and the amount of data that's required for storage and for all those records and everything, and UAV drone footage and everything becomes, you know, too much, and, you know, we need a commercial entity that can spin up more services very quickly, and that's really the value of the cloud and the value of setting up a group under Commander White that's an ambassador for that, for our service. And that's really, I think, what we're doing. And we're just kind of looking for those initial apps to make that shift, that migration, and then we're going to hear some success stories, and that's going to make other people want to go, because they're going to want those qualities that the commercial cloud has to offer.
Thank you. One last question, because we're out of time.
Okay, great. Thanks, gentlemen. Great presentation. Appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit. Question on the data fabric, and in fact, you mentioned Deepwater Horizon. You mentioned your data fabric, but what about reaching out to all the data that's everywhere? Deepwater Horizon happened. You could have benefited from reaching out to all the petroleum vendors for the data they already had or making available. As we look at attacks that are coming from all different directions, being able to reach into social media tools that can give you that information, tie into your fabric. And then also when we start looking at the CJADC2 mission, how is your data fabric going to tie into providing information to fuel that? Thank you.
Yeah, so what we're building is the foundational enterprise data fabric. There's going to be many, right? There's going to be 4 or 5 data fabrics that are integrated with each other. And I think there was a question yesterday in the Minerva brief, which is talking about standardization, right? Data standardization and ontology and taxonomy and all those fun words that data scientists like to hit you with, right? But anyway, the point is that's not the problem, right? The problem is actually coordinating the actions of the humans associated with that data, convincing them to unlock their data and make it available to the organization. I don't really care what format it is. We can change the format, right? We can convert it if we need to. So the problem is not that, unless you have a proprietary interface. Don't do that. But what we need to do is drive the organizational buy-in to share data. And that, in our mind, also includes our partners. We have port partners, like you mentioned, the petroleum partners, critical infrastructure, state and local. This starts internally in the Coast Guard, but it definitely expands out into that environment. And what I want to make sure is when we do run into there's contingencies, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Nobody knew Deepwater Horizon was going to happen, right? What we're building right now is the platform that is resilient, that we can rapidly stand up capability as needed to respond to that need, okay? So instead of doing emergency procurements and running a bunch of hardware and standing up a temporary shelter for your server racks, I'm just going to increase and make available cloud storage and increase the processing power of my data fabric so we can make sense of that information as it comes in. That's the power I really want to tap into, and what I want to emphasize is our teams are at intellectual capacity right now. I am pushing them really hard at the edge of their knowledge. We're learning and doing at the same time. This is where you guys come in. I want you to tell me the best way to do this because you've done it for this organization and that organization, and you had success, right? I want you to tell me how to do things, okay? We're at it, right? We're at that capacity level, so I need the assistance to be able to make this happen, okay?
All right, I'll make one last kind of wrap-up comment, and not really about what we're talking about today, but just more of a personal note of the Coast Guard's obviously, along with many of the DoD entities, is struggling with retention and getting new people in. So when I came to an event like this when I was in I think 3rd grade with my dad, and it was interesting, and why I remember it was one of the Coast Guard guys, officers walking around gave me this little tiny plaque that said, above all else, what you need is the will to succeed. And it was, from some Coast Guard officer, blah, blah, blah. And, I thought it was just a cool saying, and I put it above my desk. And, whenever I was studying at night for, all the way through high school, it was just always there. It was like a little reminder, to kind of push you a little bit further. And sometime when you're getting towards the end of high school and you're trying to figure out where you're going to go with your life, I kind of saw that, and I saw the Coast Guard, and I remembered always liking that saying, and I started to become more interested in the Coast Guard Academy, and I ended up going down and visiting and applying, and then here I am today, right? So I think there's a lot of people in this room that really love the military and love what the U.S. missions are, and I give some thought to when you see a young person wandering around, a kind word, a little token, one of those little coins that you see laying around everywhere, with a good kind of motivating saying or something can really go a long way into making some career choices later on. I think sometimes we underestimate how important those things are and how influential all of you are to kind of setting up the next generation of Coast Guard officers. So definitely, keep that in the back of your minds when you walk around today and you walk out in the streets and you meet some kid in high school or something, and tell them a little bit about your history and what you thought of your experiences when you were in the military or supporting the military in different ways. I think it can definitely go a long way. But thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of these great panelists up here for taking their time out today to share the thoughts on meeting the Coast Guard challenges of zero trust, AI, and cloud, none of which are easy, right? And I appreciate the focus on the people that are behind the scenes making this work. But this is what I took out of today. You are moving rapidly because you need a more responsive, secure, and sustainable capability, right, to meet and enable innovation with emerging technology to meet the needs of the future global security environment. So you are living up to your commandant's words. Tomorrow looks different, right? And now you are changing the way you look to meet the future challenges that we will face soon. So thank you for what you're doing. I also heard that there's still a ways to go, right? And you need the partnership of all of our industry partners out here and our academic partners to get the rest of the way, right? You're not finished yet. And so thank you for that. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for the conversation so that we better understand from all sides where you're trying to go so that we can help enable that. Please, a round of applause for all of these great officers.